You're listening to the Afro Podcast, a show for my fellow Black female energy healers and the everyday woman who wants to heal her energy in a creative and holistic way. You'll hear from Black female healers who share their knowledge, gifts, and experiences and enlighten you on how to tap into your powerful Black energy to get the results you need to live an energetically free life. If you're ready to become unstuck, find freedom and peace energetically, stay tuned. I'm your host, Kiera Flipping. All right, you guys. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with the founder and owner of Veggie DC, which is a vegan meal-based business out of the DMV area. The owner will be talking with us today about the importance for us Black women to really consider the foods we put into our bodies. Our guest can be found on Instagram at VeggieTalesDC. That's VeggieTellsDC, and online at VeggieTalesDC.com. She offers vegan catering, meal prep, meal plans, and coaching. Our guest today is Jasmine of Veggie Tales DC. Hello, Jasmine.
Hi, Kiera. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much, first of all, for being willing to connect and really share your insight and your expertise in vegan living and vegan eating.
Absolutely, I'm excited.
Yes, so I wanted you to come on because it's just been my personal experience. The more deep I get into energy healing of myself and of others, I personally started to recognize a change in my eating habits. And if anybody knew me 3 years ago, I could put down a slab of ribs. I was first in line at the barbecue. Like, I want ground beef and my baked beans. Like, I was that girl. But again, the more energy work I started to do for myself that then expanded into helping others heal their energy, I noticed my taste buds started to shift. My desire for meat just went away. I wasn't even interested in eating, and I thought it was kind of weird. At first I didn't notice it, and then I started to pick up on it. So I really wanted to have this conversation so other Black women can be in tune, because I feel like we're just super duper busy and we're just grabbing things to go, and we're really not connected with our mind, body, and spirit as it relates to the foods that we put into our body. So that's what our conversation will be about today. But first, I just want to start off with asking, what is vegan? Because I feel like everybody has like their own interpretation of like what it means to be vegan. Is it plant-based? Is it pescatarian? So I want you to tell us, what is it to be vegan or have a vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good starting point, because there are a lot of gray areas in veganism. So just like at a very basic level, veganism is the practice of abstaining from animal products. So that may mean that you abstain from it in your foods. That may mean that you abstain from it in your skincare. You may abstain from it in the clothing that you wear or the types of shoes that you wear. For me personally, I abstain from animal products in my food. So the food that I eat is primarily plant-based. So that means that there are no animal products, of course, including like meat, actual flesh. There's also not any animal byproducts. So that means, dairy, eggs, butter, cheeses, etc. So there is a lot of, I guess, gray area in terms of what that may be for an individual. But just at a very basic level, it's just the abstinence from animal products.
Okay. That's interesting. And I'm glad you said that, because I feel like sometimes people are a little confused, especially about the byproduct. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's the cheese and the dairy and the eggs and all that good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Because people be out here faking like they vegan, but they be eating boiled eggs for breakfast. But I'm not here to judge. Like, to each their own. To each their own. So could you share just a little bit about your journey? How did you find out about vegan? Like, what was your lifestyle transition?
So mine was very much a gradual transition. I, by
Okay.
no shape or form, and the type of like super vegan who just woke up one day and was like, you know what, I'm not eating meat anymore. No, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, that was not me at all. And I mean,
Okay.
everyone's journey is completely different. So I respect it regardless of where a person is in their journey. So for me personally, I actually cut out like pork and red meat um maybe like 10 years ago,
Okay.
and it actually stemmed from a video that I was shown of.
Is it What the Health?
No, so
Oh,
this was
okay.
10 years ago. This was 10 years
Okay.
ago. So a friend of mine showed me a video of Coke, like Coca-Cola being poured on a slab of pork,
Mm.
and maggots emerged.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
from the pork. So um that was enough to traumatize me. So from that point I was like, you know what, I'm not doing pork, I'm not doing red meat. But I was still doing fish, I was still doing seafood, I was still doing poultry, of
Mm-hmm.
course the cheese and the dairy. So fast forward like 6 years later, so I'm dating my now husband,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget, it was like New Year's Eve or something like that. Now mind you, anyone who knows my husband or who has known him prior to, the last 4 years, he was possibly the worst eater I had ever met. Like, I'm talking about taquitos from 7-Eleven at 6 in
Mm-hmm.
the morning, worst eater. Like, he just ate whatever, right? So one New Year's Eve, he's just like, I think we were like ordering pizza or whatever, and he's I'm asking him what he wants on it, and he's like, oh yeah, I don't want any meat, I just veggies, just veggies. So I'm looking at him like, okay. I was like, okay, that's fine. I mean, because me personally, like, I was always, I always enjoyed vegetables. I always enjoyed fruit. It was never that like outlandish for me to actually not have meat on my plate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when he said that, I was like, okay, that's fine. So in the coming weeks, I noticed, like, as I'm preparing meals for us, he's just like, no, I don't really want that. No, I don't really want this. So, we started talking more about it, and really he was the spark that kind of lit it in me in terms of like just researching for myself, like, what is veganism, like, what are
Mm-hmm.
the benefits? Because
Mm-hmm.
even though I had experience with like cutting meat out for like fasts or 2 weeks here, meatless Monday, different things like that, I never
Mm-hmm.
actually did the legwork of, the research as to why it would actually be beneficial for me to eat that certain way or to cut
Okay.
out certain foods. So I think once I actually started doing that, like, it started to stick.
Mm-hmm.
And even still, it was a gradual process. I still, I cut out the poultry, then I cut out the seafood. The dairy was probably the last thing to go. And for me, and this is just my experience, I actually had
Mm-hmm.
to kind of scare myself in a way, like scare myself straight when it came to dairy, because in a lot of ways, and if you do some of the research, a lot of these foods have addictive properties to them.
Hey Queens, isn't this such a great episode? Be sure to check out the Afro Healers Directory, where you can find healers in your area offering similar services to the guests on today's podcast. If you are a healer, please be sure to join the directory so that Black women can locate your healing services and offerings. To join and view the directory, please visit afroqi.com. Okay, let's jump back into this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Dairy especially. So for me, I can honestly say that I probably was addicted. I had
Yeah.
some connection to specifically like cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I literally sat myself down and watched YouTube videos that, displayed animals in the slaughterhouse and
Mm-hmm.
displayed, these cows in like inhumane living conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
it was extreme, but it's what I needed to really just like spark me and make sure that I was sticking to what I knew I needed to do for myself and for my health. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you notice any changes within yourself, like once your diet changed?
absolutely.
Can you talk to us a little bit about
Absolutely.
that?
So definitely like mental clarity,
Mm-hmm.
100%. Like my
Mm-hmm.
mind was so much clearer, and just the way my body felt.
Mm.
Like, and throughout the process, I would I cut the chicken, then I cut the seafood. The fact that dairy was the last thing, it was actually my body telling me more than anything, like, you need to stop eating this, because not only do your taste buds change, but the way that your body is processing the food, it's almost like it wakes up to realize like,
Mm.
hey, even though I've been eating this food all my life, it really isn't actually that good for me.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it starts to reject the food. So for a period of time, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I lactose intolerant? Like, I've been living all my life eating this stuff. I never had this problem. And then I'm telling you, over the few month period where I was transitioning, it was like my body was going crazy. It was going crazy, but it's like it finally knew what it wanted and what it needed. So 100%, my body went through changes. I did lose quite a bit of weight in the beginning, but you know, I was able to regain that healthy weight back just through, you know, learning different foods and different nutritional aspects and just experimenting with food overall. So
I think that's a big concern for a lot of people. They always ask like, well, where do I get my protein from? Like, I need protein. You probably hear that a lot, like
all the time, honey, all the time. Listen, you never ask someone who's eating a regular diet where they get their protein from, right? You never ask them until they say they're vegan. It's now a problem. So but what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the foods that, you know, are built into a vegan diet, like legumes, beans, grains, etc., they are so high in protein. And even if I were to compare apples to apples, like if I were to compare, you know, ground beef and potatoes, and they both delivered 8 grams of protein per cup, just, you know, throwing some numbers out there, your body is able to process the proteins from plants easier than they do from meats. So regardless of the amount, you're always going to be able to sustain more by getting plant-based proteins.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I always think about, because I'm a mental health therapist as well, I always think about when my parents bring in kids with ADHD and ADD and all of these diagnoses, like the first thing I go to is like, what are you feeding your kid? Like, what are you putting into their body? Because the things that we eat affects our mental health.
Absolutely.
Could you talk a little bit about like the energetic connection? Are you aware of like just like energy wise, like food, like vibrationally? Like I was sharing in the beginning about my journey, like just with, I started off with doing Reiki, and like the more I meditated, like just my mouth did not want certain things. Like, is that like a real thing, or was I just, I don't know,
honey,
overthinking
that is
it?
a real thing. That is a real thing. And I'm so happy you circled back to this, because, you know, as you were saying it in the beginning, just your experience, I was just thinking to myself, like, so many people don't put 2 and 2 together. You, of course, you know, you have the knowledge of energy and have the gift of really just being able to feel it at a much higher level than I feel the average person is. But just on a very basic level, just, you know, scientifically, we know that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred. So with that being said, you now have to think about what it is that you are putting in your body. The most direct transfer of energy is what we eat. And we do it all day long, and it's like we almost discredit that and don't even give it a second thought. But at what state were these animals when they were made into your hamburger? You know, they were fighting for their lives. They were afraid. They were full of anxiety. There are so many different chemicals that could have been flowing through their body and through the meat that is now on your plate, and you're now consuming that. So that energy is transferred directly to you. And you know, just speaking on like the fear and the adrenaline, like there's actually studies that show that they actually have to discard some of the meat because the adrenaline that is pushed out right before, you know, the animal goes through the process, it actually damages the meat because it's now tasteless, it's tough, they can't sell it. I'm talking about like over $200 million annually is discarded because they can no longer use it, just because of how potent those chemicals are in the meat. So now just consider that, you know, when you're actually eating it, what are you consuming? So the energy is definitely transferred 100%. And then just knowing that was, you know, a living thing. And, you know, once you get more in tune with just the fact that everything has life and everything gives off energy, once you grow to appreciate that, like, you know, in your situation, it's like you are no longer comfortable with taking from another energy source to kind of feed for your own. So That's
Wow.
so true.
That is so deep. Goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know people are probably scratching their head like I am, like, oh, especially when you brought up like the anxiety, like that really put a lot into perspective. Like I would imagine if somebody was trying to slaughter me, like I would be so anxious. And
Yes.
it's so crazy that you use the diagnosis of anxiety, because so many Black women are diagnosed or undiagnosed with anxiety. That is like the leading diagnosis for Black women. So this is all making so
it all
much
ties
sense.
in.
It does.
And even depression too. You got to think about, you know, it's not that they just, and I'm sorry, I really don't want to harp on just the whole animal process, but when it comes to like the transfer of energy, you really do have to, you know, consider it. But these animals are depressed.
Yeah.
They're depressed. And, you know, I was listening to another chef Chef Zoo, I think his name was, and he was basically saying like the stomach is the second mind. What you put in it is what is transferred to your mind. And a lot of times we have these, you know, these neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine. They are so important to our you know, our wellness and our quality of life. You know, serotonin is directly linked to the feeling of happiness. Dopamine is directly linked to the feeling of, you know, euphoria and pleasure. But what we put in our gut and what we put in our stomach directly affects that. So, you know, choose things that are going to have a positive impact on that. Choose greens, choose mushrooms, broccolis, peas. These are all things that are shown to, you know, be high in serotonin.
That's good information.
Yeah, definitely. And also, with that being said, there's also a flip side, because there are things like carbohydrates and there are things like chocolate that are
Don't take my chocolate away.
I know. Listen, dark chocolate is good. Look,
okay.
I'm a chocolate lover too. But okay, so let's say carbohydrates, like bad carbohydrates, right? So like the over processed, the Twinkies, etc., different things like that. So those actually do ignite the dopamine in our mind, but it's false. It's like it's this false euphoria, and then it's like it's almost, that's how we get that addiction aspect of it, because we're now addicted to these heavy carbs. And if you know, you deal with mental health patients all the time, but like if you know someone personally who has gone through depression, like carbohydrates is like all the food groups. Give me all the carbs, because it makes me feel good. Give me all the processed sugars. Give me all that bad stuff, because it gives me this false sense of happiness and pleasure and euphoria. And it's like our brain gets programmed into that feeling, and we're now like, okay, if I want to feel better, I now have to reach for this. If I want to feel better, I now have to reach for that. So a lot of it is really just a mindset. Like veganism is mind over matter. You know what I mean? And once your mind makes that shift, your body will follow, to the point where your body's like, listen, I feel so good right now.
Yes.
I just had a green smoothie. I had chickpeas for dinner. Like, I need to keep this up, because I feel so good. My energy levels are high. You know, I feel happy. It all goes hand in hand. And once we reprogram our brain, it's like it's easy. It's easy after that. It really is.
I definitely hear you on the energy piece. I know when I changed my eating, that was the first thing that I noticed was my energy level. Like I wasn't so bogged down and just tired all the time. Like I was up and at it. I had so much energy. So I want to piggyback off of that, because you talked a lot about your process and your transition. And so for the Black women that are listening right now that are like, oh my gosh, yes, she is truly dropping some gems, but where do I start? How do I get started? What do I do first? What should I get? You know, like, where should they begin?
So I'm going to circle back to what I said earlier. Before I even get into this topic, everyone's journey is different and it's unique. And I always tell people, you know, as long as you're moving towards your mark, then you're showing progress. You know, if you fall off a day or two, don't just give in or be hard on yourself. Like, it's a process, it's a journey. So don't be too hard on yourself. Have fun with it. First and foremost, have fun with it, because if you're not having fun with it, then I don't care what you do or what you think or what your intentions are, it's not going to be sustainable, because it's miserable. So first and foremost, have fun with it. one thing that I heard that I thought was like, oh my God, this is so genius. And it actually is part of like, I think what helped me. I don't know if you're familiar with Jasmine Leva, I believe is the pronunciation of her last name. But anyway, she's actually from the DMV. She is plant-based vegan, and she created a documentary called The Invisible Vegan, where it just kind of like talks about, you know, some of the misconceptions surrounding like veganism in the Black community, and just trying to like dispel some of those. But one thing that she said that I was like, wow, this is really key, and I think it's essential to a lot of people who are trying to make that transition. She's like, just start with your favorite dish. Start with your favorite dish, you know. And I feel like I have a lot of that same mentality where it's like, you know, start where you're at. You know, I'm not expecting you to just go from never cooking a meal and always eating out McDonald's 5 times a night to now cooking 5 times a night gourmet meals. Like, it's not realistic. But pick one thing that you really enjoy making. It could be a hamburger. It could be a homemade pizza. It could be spaghetti. You know what I mean? Conquer that meal, make it really good, and show yourself that you can eat vegan and still enjoy what you're eating.
Oh, okay. So when you say start with your favorite meal, you're saying pick your favorite meal and make it vegan style.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Exactly.
That's a neat idea.
So it's like, not only does it give you, not only are you able to eat something that you really enjoy, you know, over and over and over until you figure out how to make something else, but it also just kind of, it kind of takes the taboo away from like vegan, because I feel like when people say, oh, I don't eat vegan, like, they don't even realize that a large part of their current diet is quote unquote vegan. It just means, what are you eating that doesn't come from an animal? So I'm pretty sure that everyone has experience eating salad. Everyone has experience eating broccoli, experience eating spinach, rice, beans. These are all quote unquote vegan foods because they don't come from animals or animal products. So it's like, once you kind of take that mental aspect and just like unlock the fact that, hey, you know, I can do this using food that I already eat. I think that's key. And just start slow. It could be something like Meatless Mondays. Make it fun. You know, if you have a family, you know, involve them in the process. Meatless Mondays. You know, watch documentaries. Oh my gosh, there are so many documentaries. Honestly, Netflix alone, you could just be on there for hours. Definitely watch things like What the Health, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead is another really good one. Force Over Knives, those are really good starter ones. And join a community. Like, a lot of times having a support system is key. Like, you know, I was blessed enough to go through this process with my husband. But a lot of people don't have that support. And it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to be like, oh my God, like, what am I going to make tonight? Like, I can't. So just having a community, and there are so many communities, even just like, if you go on Facebook, I know in the DMV area specifically, if you just type in DC vegan or DMV vegan, it's gonna populate so many communities. They have meetups. They post recipes. Yeah, just like a support system, and it really is important, just to have that. So yeah, definitely. And then of course, do your research, because if you don't have a reason why you're doing it, then the chances of you reverting back to, you know, eating meat are very high. So just find your why, find your reason. It's different for everyone, but find it, stick with it, and let that be your driving force.
I like that. My daughter, her doctor is a naturopath, and she recommends like not all of your meals have meat. She was like, if you're just getting started, if you're eating 3 meals a day, only one of those meals have meat. So maybe, you know, you'll have whatever for breakfast, a chicken salad for lunch, and then something else without meat for dinner. Like, she's like really keen on that. Like, Black people, why do we feel like we have to have meat in every single meal? Like, our meal is not complete unless it has meat. Oh, that was
but that's just it. It's so deeply rooted in our culture that it's almost abnormal. It's almost frowned upon. Like, what? You're at Thanksgiving, you're not eating mac and cheese. You're not eating fried chicken, but it's like, we've adopted it as our culture, but a lot of the times it's not African culture. This is slave culture.
Yeah, man.
Chitlins and pig's feet and all the other discarded animal products that we quote unquote, we say are soul food. These are scraps. These are the things that our ancestors had to scrape together to survive. And it's like, we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that anymore. We have the knowledge, we have the know-how, we have the resources to do better, not only for ourselves, but for our family, for our family's family. And it's like, what a lot of people don't realize is what I put in my body today actually affects the genetic makeup of my kids, my kids' kids, and my kids' kids' kids.
Yes.
Like all the way down the line. So it's not just about me. It's not just about me. And it's like, I love to see the Black community, just really starting to pick up speed on like, financial literacy and wanting to create generational wealth, and just in so many ways, just evolving. And I am just I'm really excited and really hopeful to see that same thing happen in the vegan community, because this is just as essential to our future, to our kids' future, as all of those other things.
You really put that into perspective for me. I've never even considered that. Like, what we eat really affects our genetic makeup, and we pass that stuff on generation 100%. To generation. Like, I never considered that. And that leads me to my next question. Like, you talked about, like, now, like, we have the resources, like, we don't have to eat scraps. Like, we can actually choose and decide the things we eat. What about the woman that's listening right now that's like, I can't afford this. Like, all I can afford right now, girl, is the dollar menu. Like, I shop at Save a Lot. Like, this is all I got right now. Like, I got my EBT, and me and my kids, we got to just get what we get. Like, a lot of people feel like vegan eating or plant-based eating is so expensive.
Yes. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it can't be. It can be. But that a lot of the increase and the influx of cost, it is related to those imitation products. So the imitation meats, the overly processed foods that, they resemble like chicken tenders, they resemble, bacon, they resemble meat crumbles, or even like vegan ice cream. And like a lot of those things, they are expensive. I'm not gonna fake, they're expensive. But that your diet does not have to be composed of that at all. Like, if you go to the grocery store, and I'm speaking from experience, like coming from someone who used to spend, I don't know, $10 on a pack of chicken breast or whatever the case may be, like that $10 can go so far in the produce section. I'm talking about, I'm getting cauliflower, I'm getting mushrooms, I'm getting onions, I'm getting avocado, I'm getting salad, I'm getting pasta. Like, I have a meal for a whole week off that $10. And it's not only is it tasting good, but it's good for me.
Yeah.
And my pockets are fat. Like, I'm actually saving money by not spending $10-$15 on meat to store in the freezer. Eating meat and dairy is expensive. It really is. And then, I mean, at the end of the day, guess what's more expensive? Heart surgery is more expensive. Chemotherapy is more expensive. Diabetes is probably the most expensive. Like, these are things that we are making ourselves susceptible to by not, telling ourselves that we aren't worthy of spending money on produce items, or venturing out and putting food in our bodies that's good for us. Like, either you pay now or you pay later. And really, you don't even have to pay now, because if you are open to venturing out into a plant-based diet where it's high in vegetables and beans, a can of black beans at the grocery store costs all of 75 cents. It costs all of 75 cents. So
I 100% agree. When I drop the meat, my grocery bill decrease. Like, and I shop at Aldi. So if anybody knows me personally, I shop at Aldi. They have the best produce section. Right now it's like the winter season, so they have all of the what are those, like all of the different squash out and stuff like that. I love the fall and winter season at Aldi's. That's when all the good stuff comes out.
And I'm so happy you brought Aldi up. I'm so happy, because that is a hidden gem right there. And they've actually started some new initiatives where they have vegan items in
Yes,
their
they
store.
do. Yes.
They sell my favorite non-dairy shreds. Listen, I'm putting y'all on the game right now. They have all these styles, these mozzarella, like non-dairy shreds, non-dairy and non-soy. They're like pea-based.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't find a lot of non-dairy shreds that aren't soy-based. And they melt. Oh my God. Anyway,
they do melt. Yes, they melt.
They are
because
so
I use them
good.
for pizza. They definitely melt. It's hard sometimes
so
to find vegan cheese that melt, but those definitely melt.
Those are the truth. But not even just the cheese. They have nut milk, they have almond milk, cashew milk, coconut milk. You know, like you said, they have a great produce section. Like, listen, all I'm gonna say, because I could go on for days and days, it's affordable. It's probably more affordable than you think. Don't ever let that deter you. Don't ever feel like you have to shop at Whole Foods to be vegan. Like you and I just made a point that we shop at the discount Aldi.
Hello.
And we eat very well. Okay. Like it is so attainable. It really is.
Absolutely.
Price should not be the barrier, because I'm telling you, if you don't make the change now, you're gonna end up paying so much more in healthcare down the line. So much more.
I love it. I love it. All right. My last final question. If you can just shed some light, we talked about a lot, but just if you have any specifics for all the Black women that are listening, like what are the specific benefits that they can expect to receive from adapting a vegan lifestyle, or just some sort of clean eating, some sort of mindful eating something.
Yeah. So making that change, like the benefits, there's no question about it. You're gonna experience the benefits almost immediately. I feel like a lot of Black women, really just women in general, we take pride in our skin, we take pride in our hair, we take pride in our image. Honey, once you cut out the animal products, your skin is gonna glow, your hair is gonna flourish, your body will be snatched. And don't ever for a second feel like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to lose any weight. Like, and I feel like a lot of Black females, they are pressured with this image of having to be thick, having to be shapely. By no shape or form am I a thin girl. And I can be the poster child for a vegan that still, was able to maintain her shape. And then even if you do lose a little bit of weight, there are so many foods that you can incorporate to, build that back up. I definitely don't want that to be like a deterrent. But your body will feel better. You'll definitely have mental clarity, and you'll be happy. Like you'll just be happy. And I feel like for Black women, I feel like a lot of times we carry a lot of the burden, but when it comes to food and then when it comes to our family, we are the gatekeepers. We are the gatekeepers. Like, if it's not cooked by, okay, and I'm this is a very general statement, because I know that's not every household, but like a lot of times we do set the tone for what our families consume.
Absolutely.
And we can be the change. We can be the change 100%. And that change will not only, happen within the four walls of our household, but it can now trickle into the Black community. And we can begin to see those diseases that are so rampant in the Black community. Like, there's no reason why African Americans should be 60% should account for 60% of all races that deal with diabetes. And then on top of that, like on top of having the diabetes, it goes uncontrolled. So now we're losing limbs. Now we're on dialysis 3 times a week. Like, it does not have to be that way. Just because our grandma and our grandpa, was stuck onto a dialysis machine for the last 20 years of their life, it doesn't mean that has to be our future. That doesn't have to be our outcome. That doesn't even have to be our parents' outcome. I feel like a lot of the times, as Black women, we feel like our reach isn't as strong as it is, but we are so powerful and we can make such a big change. Like, I know for me, just, sharing something that happened recently in my life that was like, oh my God, like this is like so much bigger than me. Like, my father, who if my husband was the worst eater that I know, then my dad was like right underneath him. Okay, so I spoke with him the other day, and he's like, yeah, so in 2020, I'm going to cut out all meat. I'm just gonna eat fish.
Okay.
And Kiara, I almost cried. I'm just like, what? Like, oh my goodness. But that just goes to show, like, our reach and our impact is so strong. Like, honestly, there's nothing that we can't do. So this is just another thing to add to the list. Like,
I love it. And I love how you mentioned that Black women, like, we're the gatekeeper. I think that is so very true. And especially like just with how busy we are and just juggling so many aspects of life. I know when my diet changed, I was more present for my clients, like sitting there doing therapy for hours in a day. I was more present for my clients. I was more present for my husband, more present for my daughter, where I would come home from work and just wanted to just go to bed and just shut everybody out. Like, I actually had the energy, like my brain was clear, my mind was able to process better. And I suffered from heavy periods, like, I mean, the whole 7 days, like, really heavy. And when I cut the dairy, my periods were maybe like 3 to 4 days, and they were really light. Like,
that's so true.
That was like the breaking point for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. So I think as Black women, we really have to be mindful about what we eat. Again, we're so busy. We're coming and going day in and day out. We rarely have time to really sit down and process our mood and how our energy is, and really check in with self, and then line those things up to, what did I eat today? Like,
there is no connection, but it's we always skip over that part.
We don't pay attention to that. It's like, who pissed us off? Who cut us off on our way to work? Like, we want to make it that.
Yes, but it starts within. Everything in life starts from within. And, nutrition is no different. The same way that, your thoughts create your reality, your nutrition creates your health. Your nutrition creates how you feel day in and day out. Like, and it's time to start making that connection and stop. I feel like there's like a barrier that is like, okay, food's over here, and how I feel and my energy and my mood is over here, but they are so closely knit. They go hand in hand. So
I agree. And meal planning and meal prepping, I know that was something I had to come to grips with, because if you don't plan, you'll just kind of grab whatever because you're hungry. And for me, I get hangry. Like, when I don't eat, I am not a nice person. So I have to always have my food and my snacks on deck. So that way I don't just go and grab nuggets or go and grab something. Like, I have my meals prepped out. So for those who are in the DMV, make sure you hit up Veggie Tales DC, because she does catering, meal prep, meal planning, and she's also available for coaching as well. So especially for those that are interested in connecting and getting started, don't know where to start, maybe hit her up for some coaching and see where that goes. So Jasmine, thank you so
thank you
much.
This was awesome.
Yes. Is there anything, did I miss anything you wanted to add, or any last words of anything?
I mean, honestly, you hit everything on the head. One thing I will, so I know I dropped a couple documentaries in there, but one thing that really spoke to me, like, as a Black female, and I mean, it's not a Black female, but it's a Black male.
Okay.
Book, it's The Happy Vegan by Russell Simmons.
Ah, nice.
The way that he just talks through the book is just like very, easy to, connect with. And it was a very easy read. Anyone who is, looking to kind of find that why, doesn't really like reading, research studies and all of that, very intense and heavy stuff, read his book. He has so much information in it, and it's just like a really good starting point for anybody who's interested. Even if you already are on your journey, it's like full of information. So I definitely would recommend that to anybody who's interested.
This is perfect. All right, guys, make sure you check out the show notes below to figure out how you can get in contact with Jasmine. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Afro Chi podcast. Be sure to visit our website at afroqi.com. and on all social media platforms at The Afro QI. Subscribe to this podcast now so you never miss a show.